It started with a joke, a quick laugh on a podcast. But by the next morning, that joke had set off a firestorm that would stretch from MSNBC's studio lights all the way to the White House. Jen Psaki, once praised as one of the most composed political communicators in Washington, suddenly found herself at the center of a national scandal, accused of crossing the line from humor to humiliation. And what she said about Vice President J.D. Vance's wife, Usha, might just change how Americans view political media forever. The controversy began on the I've Had It podcast, a show known for blending politics with gossip. Psaki, the former White House press secretary turned MSNBC host, was there to chat about power, ambition, and the upcoming election season. But when the topic turned to Vice President J.D. Vance, Psaki's tone shifted. She called Vance scarier than Donald Trump, then joked about his wife, Usha Vance, saying, "I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like, are you okay? Please blink 4 times. We'll come over here. We'll save you." The hosts laughed. The internet didn't. Within hours, the clip went viral. Viewers called the remark cruel, elitist, and deeply personal, an attack not just on Vance but on his family. Social media erupted, conservative pundits pounced, and suddenly Psaki, who built her reputation on discipline and composure, was being called reckless and vile. And behind that outrage, a much deeper question emerged. Why did a single sarcastic line ignite such fury across the country? By dawn, the backlash was everywhere. On X, formerly Twitter, clips of the segment flooded feeds. Libs of TikTok wrote, "Unhinged Jen Psaki is now smearing J.D. Vance, suggesting his wife wants to leave him and needs to be saved." Fox News contributor Joe Concha simply posted, "Not a good person, at all." Town Hall journalist Amy Curtis went further. "This is vile. Usha Vance is happily married. This insults women who've actually endured real abuse." Even political moderates, people who rarely defend conservatives, called the remark tone-deaf and beneath her. Soon hashtags like Fire Psaki and Media Double Standard were trending. Supporters of J.D. Vance began posting photos of him and Usha with their kids, praising her intelligence and success as a Yale-educated attorney. The irony was impossible to miss. Jen Psaki, the polished, articulate face of the Biden administration, had become the story herself, and the more she stayed silent, the angrier the internet became. By mid-morning, the story had broken out of social media and into the mainstream. Fox News replayed the clip on loop. The Hill and Politico ran headlines. MSNBC producers found themselves fielding calls they didn't want to answer. Inside the network, executives were in quiet crisis mode. No public apology, no retraction, just one strategy: wait it out. But the silence only made it worse. Political insiders from Vice President Vance's office blasted Psaki's words as an attack on a family, not a policy. Others called it proof that D.C. elites think they can say anything without consequence. Conservative media turned it into a rallying cry, calling out hypocrisy. If a Republican said this about a Democrat's spouse, one commentator noted, they'd be fired before the weekend. Psaki's brand, once calm, credible, and media-savvy, suddenly looked partisan and petty. And that perception wasn't just hurting her. It was feeding a bigger narrative about the bias of mainstream news. By the end of the day, Psaki had gone from commentator to cautionary tale. And yet, the outrage wasn't only political, it was cultural. Because underneath the noise, the Psaki scandal struck a nerve that ran far deeper than politics. In 2025, every joke is a headline. Every laugh can destroy a career. And for many, Psaki's "blink 4 times" remark was proof that the powerful no longer know when to stop talking. Her defenders insisted it was harmless satire, a light jab in the long tradition of political humor. Her critics saw hypocrisy, proof that the same media voices who preach decency don't practice it when the target is conservative. That argument lit up talk shows, podcasts, and news panels across the country. Why is it comedy when the left mocks the right, but hate speech when it happens in reverse? Why is it acceptable to joke about Usha Vance, a private citizen, but off-limits to joke about Democratic spouses? The answers divided a nation already split in two. To some, Psaki's words symbolized arrogance, a glimpse into how elite media figures view anyone outside their ideological bubble. To others, it was yet another overblown controversy fueled by the outrage economy. But one thing was undeniable. The story hit harder because it involved a woman mocking another woman. In an era obsessed with empowering female voices, Psaki's joke about rescuing Usha Vance made even her supporters wince. It wasn't just poor judgment. It was a symbol of a cultural double standard, one where empathy stops at political borders. In any other year, the scandal might have faded in days. But 2025 is no ordinary year. With Donald Trump back in the White House and J.D. Vance as his vice president, every headline feeds a larger war, a battle not just for votes, but for narrative control. Psaki's joke became political ammunition. Conservatives framed it as evidence that liberal media doesn't just disagree with them, it despises them. And the fallout worked in Vance's favor. Polls in Ohio showed a small bump in his approval rating. Supporters called his silence classy. Meanwhile, inside MSNBC, frustration simmered. Producers worried that every controversy like this one chipped away at the audience's faith in the brand. Ratings might hold, but credibility doesn't regenerate that easily. For Psaki, the implications were personal. She had been viewed as a potential Democratic strategist, even a future cabinet pick. Now she was a liability. One political insider put it bluntly, "You can't talk about unity when you're mocking someone's marriage." And in 2025, perception matters more than policy. Psaki once said, "Words matter. What we say defines who we are." 4 years later, those words had come full circle, and they defined her more than ever. What made this controversy truly explosive wasn't just who said it was where it landed. In a country already skeptical of the press, Psaki's comment became proof of what many Americans already believed. The media doesn't inform anymore. It performs. Independent journalists and YouTube creators tore into the story, framing it as the perfect case study in elitism. Fox News called it a glimpse behind the curtain. Even neutral outlets couldn't deny the ripple effect. Trust in mainstream networks keeps sliding while alternative voices gain ground. On social media, hashtags like media bias and double-standard journalism exploded. Viewers didn't see this as a partisan feud. They saw it as confirmation that the media class laughs at them, not with them. Inside MSNBC, morale reportedly dropped. Producers worried that another liberal host gone too far headline would further alienate viewers who just wanted straight news. And through it all, Psaki stayed silent. No apology, no clarification. Just silence, which in today's climate can be louder than any statement. By the weekend, the narrative was set in stone. Jen Psaki, the face of professional media restraint, had become the latest symbol of its downfall. Because the story was never just about a single joke, it was about a growing belief that journalists don't play by the same rules as everyone else, and that in 2025 the press itself has become part of the polarization it was supposed to explain. In the end, Jen Psaki's joke lasted less than 10 seconds. But those 10 seconds revealed the new reality of modern politics, where every word is recorded, every laugh is judged, and every misstep can become a cultural flashpoint. Her remark about Usha Vance wasn't just a bad joke. It was a mirror, reflecting the arrogance, tension, and exhaustion inside America's media class. Because in this age, it doesn't matter what you meant, it matters how it sounds. And once the internet decides what it heard, there's no going back. For Psaki, it's a lesson in humility. For the press, it's another warning that trust can't be rebuilt with punchlines. And for viewers, it's a reminder that the real power no longer belongs to those behind the microphones. It belongs to the millions watching from home, deciding who to believe. Maybe the real story here isn't about who crossed the line. Maybe it's about how blurred that line has become. Because in 2025, where politics is theater and every opinion is amplified, the only rule that still matters is this: perception is power. And sometimes, one careless joke is all it takes to lose it. What do you think? Was Jen Psaki unfairly targeted, or did she finally reveal what the media really thinks? Comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that dig beyond the headlines.